Bill, Mr. President.
Senator's the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good to see you today, this afternoon.
Good to see you.
So I tried to do a ride-along in the last 2 months, but they wouldn't let me because of this virus. So I did the next best thing. I sat down with the senator from Prince William County. We met with about 8 police officers and talked to them about what they thought. We got some ideas. We made some changes and some legislation based on that. I've probably talked with about 5 or 6 police chiefs and sheriffs, maybe 7 or 8 now, in the last 2 months as we work through this process. I practice criminal defense, just like the senator from James City County. I've probably watched hundreds of videos of police-civilian encounters. It doesn't obviously put you right there in the car all the time, but it does give you a bit of perspective about what goes on. And having tried cases for 24 years involved in these issues, it gives you some perspective. And so I don't consider myself completely uninformed about this, but I have seen a lot. This last week I was in court as we try to here juggle our personal and professional lives with coming down here 2 days a week. And a couple of my criminal defense lawyer friends came up to me and said, "What are you guys doing with qualified immunity?" And I said, "It's dead." And they said, "You know, I've had 3 or 4 officers come up to me and tell me that if that passes, they're quitting." And I said, "Well, you can tell them that it's not passing. We took care of that." I had another officer came up to me I had a case with, and I'd had prior cases with him. He came up to me and he said, "I saw you put in that assault by police officer thing, bill." And I said, "Yeah, I did." And he said, "Yeah, a couple of my guys were complaining to me about that." He said, "But I went and looked at it, and it wasn't that bad." And he said, "I can't tell you how many stupid cases I've seen my colleagues bring that they never should have been brought. And I saw the amendments you made, and the amendments look okay to me, and I've been telling people that. I don't see what the big deal is about it." There's a lot of misinformation out there, folks, and I'm concerned that a little bit of this floor debate is spreading even more of it, okay? So, first of all, I just want to talk about the Law Enforcement Procedural Guarantee Act. I know the senator from Bedford brought that up. If you look at the Law Enforcement Procedural Guarantee Act and you compare it with the process created by the Civilian Review Board, they're totally incompatible. You can't have both. It's impossible to have both apply at the same time. And so that's why it has to be one or the other if you choose to engage in one of these more robust Civilian Review Board models with hiring and firing. That's why that had to come out. With regard to the subpoena power issue, first of all, if you look at the enabling legislation, somewhere in here, I can't remember which line it's on, but it says that the board may retain counsel or have an attorney. There's going to be an attorney sitting next to these folks as they make their decisions, just like there are with every other local government body. And I guarantee you that if they start pushing an envelope to a place that the lawyer don't like, the lawyer's going to have something to say about it. And in my experience, most of these, well, I can't speak for some places like, for example, the city of Portsmouth, but many other boards I've ever seen, they seem to listen to their lawyers and not push the envelope, especially when they're all civilians and not elected officials. I would also note that on line 74, if you're looking for a limitation on their power to issue subpoenas, it says that they may issue these subpoenas necessary to perform their duties. And I would say if you're looking for limitations, just look at the bill, because the bill describes their duties. And so if somebody wants to issue a subpoena, they're going to have to walk down to court, they're going to have to talk to a judge, they're going to have to point at a particular part of that statute that says this relates to this part of our duty to justify the issuance of that subpoena. And the judge will act as a check and balance. If somebody who's receiving that subpoena doesn't like it, the bill says they have an opportunity to file a motion to quash and come in and dispute the validity of the breadth or whatever that subpoena. There are checks and balances to prevent some board from going wild. Probably 2 or 3 different checks and balances. Besides the fact that the locality can even choose whether to do this or whether to even give them this power. I would also note there's been some talk about how police aren't allowed to sit on here. I want to make this clear. Current, active, employed police on the same department are not allowed to sit on here. But there's nothing prohibiting a deputy sheriff who lives in the same county from sitting on, who's employed from sitting on here, if it's reviewing the police department of a different, in the same locality, if they're not employed by that police department. There's nothing prohibiting retired police officers from sitting on here. I suspect, although I haven't heard from the gentlelady, but the purpose of prohibiting sitting law enforcement officers from reviewing their colleagues is because there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there, and it might be hard to go back and serve with your friends if you just voted to throw your friend off the force. So there's definitely conflict issues that arise from that situation when you're working with the same people every day in the exact same job, especially if you're dealing with smaller departments. I would note that civilian review boards are in use. You already heard about Fairfax. I believe there's one in either Charlottesville or Albemarle. The city of Virginia Beach even has one. They founded theirs in 1991. They have a civilian board that reviews internal investigation complaints. And they have a whole website about it. You can go read it. They have a copy of the ordinance from 1991. Apparently, the City Council of Virginia Beach hasn't done anything about changing it. They're so happy with it. But I almost have another list of about 100 different localities around the country that have done these. We're not like plowing new ground or inventing something radical here. This is existing policy all around the country, and dozens and dozens and dozens of these around the country already have subpoena power. This is not anything fancy or unusual. Now, I would also say, I also heard that law enforcement here is appalled at what we've been doing here. I'm not sure what session people have been attending, but at least at the Courts of Justice or the Judiciary Committee meeting that I heard, where we discussed the Senator from Hampton's Senate Bill 5030, I didn't hear any complaints from law enforcement about what we were doing. And I heard them at a press conference the other day where they actually applauded the Senate and the Senate's treatment of this legislation. So I'm not really clear, like, what debate some people are referencing when we're talking about how things we're doing here are causing all these problems. From my perspective, if there's problems that are going on, it's because there's been a long-term investment in political discord and racial discord in this country, and those chickens are coming home to roost right now. There's a man with orange hair who every single chance he gets to open his mouth to cause problems for his own political gain, to try and gin up something for a presidential election, is causing a lot of these problems. A lot of statements that he makes. I'll be happy to yield in just a minute. And so I would suggest that if folks are looking for a cause of all the unhappiness, of all the anger, of all the problems, look across the river and look at what's happening over there, and maybe start to condemn some of the things that are coming out from across the river. Maybe start to try to do something to heal our state, to heal our country. Because right now, the bills that we're passing, the things we're doing to allow civilians to have more say in how things are done, are helping to clean up a lot of the mess that's been created by 400 years of bad policy that are being put on steroids by this person across the river. And I think the legislation we're passing, including the Civilian Review Board, is actually going to bring peace to this Commonwealth. It's going to make our law enforcement agencies stronger. It's going to make our localities trust them. It's going to make us root out our bad apples. It is going to give us stronger law enforcement, and it's not going to cause all the problems and all the doom and gloom that we're hearing from the other side.